Well, he was the person who declared that he was a tiger himself, but he was a sheep throughout his tenure. He did nothing to curb criminal activities. He did nothing to actually bring about professionalism, contrary to what you're saying. He was the IGP who promoted people who didn't deserve promotion and didn't promote those who deserve promotion. In fact, I had to lead protests against him to get policemen promoted, and those protests led to the promotion of 74,000 policemen, the removal of over 500 policemen, senior police officers who had tinkered with their age. All those happened because we did protest. And but when you look at insecurity in the country, even to the point of what happened in Yewata, where he fumbled right in front of his principal, who asked him what's going on here, and he had no answers. He just fumbled through his tenure, and that is why it's important that we recognize that it's important to take a stand when issues or principle are involved. The principle here is that when someone is retired and the law didn't give you the permission to extend their tenure for 4 years, don't try to do it. If you do it, of course, there are people who will stand against that, against all odds, and that's what I did, and that's what our group did, our movement did throughout his tenure. This removal, or resignation as they like to dress it, is an acknowledgement of the fact that his tenure was never legit.
Isn't that, the very fact that your advocacy and activism, pressured the force under his watch, to yield to the demands of welfare for retirees of the police, doesn't that work in his favor, of the outgoing IGP? Because under, other leaderships, they could have resorted to force and not yield to demand. So doesn't that show that, some form of liberalism and worked on it in his favor on his part? And if you refer to the other challenges under his watch, could it have been significantly different under any other IGP, knowing full well that it's an appointive position and there are pressures, for appointment from, the appointing authority?
Well, just to correct the impression you created, he did use force. I was arrested after we did the police protest. I was detained, and I was attacked inside the cell at FID by men of the police force led by an CSP. Several policemen who forwarded messages and WhatsApp groups asking for better welfare for policemen and promoting our protest were also arrested. So many of them were kicked out of the police force. Some of them were detained for several months. So he did use force. He tried to untwist the police. Even the retired policemen that we fought with who got some reprieve through the National Assembly, the law was never signed by President Tinubu because this guy ensured that it wasn't done. So how you tell about this is the jubilation that followed his removal yesterday, even while he was in office at the headquarters. And you must have seen a video. I visited the headquarters briefly, and I know what I heard from policemen across the country about the fact that this guy really mismanaged the Nigeria police force. And to your point about whether a new person will bring about change, well, we are not going to say, oh, wait. We are going to enforce that we have a police force that works for people. We want a police force that don't pander to special interests, arresting people for cyber crime and abandoning serious hardened criminals, terrorists, and promoting policing discipline by promoting people who don't deserve promotion, or what you're saying with policemen who still carry out extortion and are protected at the highest level, and the policing that protects the rich and abandon the poor. That has to change. Those are non-negotiable positions. So if a new person comes in and he starts to fumble, we will take on the person as immediately as they are sworn in until they do what is right by the Nigerian people.